Alright, so this is going to be the last part for Law of Sines, part 3. And if you're on this video, I would really encourage you to go back and watch the part 1 and part 2. Okay, because it ties, everything ties in together. Alright, so just real quick, sine A over A is equal to sine B over B is equal to sine C over C. Basically, we can take any two and set them equal to each other. And remember, side A is opposite angle A, side B is opposite angle B, and side C is opposite angle C. I went over this in the first two. So, alright, so let's go ahead and jump into the problem. Alright, so solve the triangle. Alright, so just like in the other videos, I like to just make a table. So I've got angles, sides, okay. So I've got A is 29.7 degrees, angle B we don't know, angle C we don't know. Side A is 27.2, side B is 41.5, and side C we don't know. Alright, so as you can see, the only thing that we can solve for, because see, we've got, this is what we have to work with. Okay, so you can see we know angle A, side A, and side B, so we can actually solve for angle B. Okay, so that's what we're going to use to solve for angle B. Alright, so that is going to give me the sine of 29.7 degrees over 27.2 is equal to the sine of B over 41.5. And if I solve for sine B, I will get sine B is equal to 41.5 times the sine of 29.7 over 27.2. And so sine B is equal to, alright, so now we get sine B is 0.7559387. Okay, so now to find angle B, I need to take the inverse sine of that. And when I do, when I take the inverse sine of this 0.755, I get 49.1 degrees. Okay, so I know angle B is 49.1 degrees. Alright, now, hopefully you watched part 2. So we've got sine B is equal to a positive number. Okay, is equal to a positive number. So remember, this 49.1, that's the angle in the first quadrant. But remember, sine is also positive in the second quadrant. Okay, and this 49.1, that's my reference angle. That's 49.1 degrees. So B would be 180 minus this 49.1 degrees. So B, 180 minus 49.1, that is 130.9 degrees. Okay, so if you remember from the previous video, okay, we may have a second triangle. Well, if I look at this, angles, sides, and so angle A is 29.7 degrees, angle B, that's what we're looking for, angle C, and then I've got A is 27.2, B is 41.5, and C we don't know. Well, I'm saying that B is 130.9 degrees. Well, if we take 130.9 degrees plus the given angle A, 29.7 degrees, so 29.7, that is equal to 160.6 degrees. Now look at that. When we added these two angles up, it's less than 180. Okay? And since that's the case, we have two triangles. Remember in the second part, when I added up the angles, I've erased it, but when I got that second angle and I added up the given angle and that second angle, I think we got an answer of 230 something, which was more than 180. Okay, that's why there wasn't a second triangle on that one. Okay, but in this case, when I add up the second quadrant angle and the given angle, it's less than 180, so I've got two triangles. All right. Now, just remember, when you're using the law of sines, you're going to have to check for that second triangle. Sometimes you'll have it, sometimes you won't. But remember, this problem is different than this one. We talked about it in the second video. We didn't check for a second triangle here. This is the problem from part 1. Because they gave us two angles. C can't be anything else but 66.2. Okay, that's the difference. Notice in the problem from part 2 and part 3, see here they gave us two angles. Remember from part 3, we were only given one angle and had two angles unknown. Same thing here, we were only given one angle and we had two angles unknown. So what I do now is I need to relabel this. This is going to be B1, C1, C1. This will be B2, C2, C2. Okay, so this is B1 and I have B2. Remember, we got that from 180 minus 49.1, which was 130.9 degrees. So the B1, C1, C1, that represents triangle 1, and the subscript 2's represent the second triangle. All right, well, so let's see. Here we go. So now I can find angle C1. Okay, that's going to be 180 minus these two angles, 29.7 minus 49.1. And so 180 minus 29.7 minus 49.1 is 101.2 degrees. And so this is going to be 101.2 degrees. And then let's go ahead and find angle C2. That's going to be 180 minus 29.7 degrees minus 130.9 degrees. So 180 minus 29.7 minus 130.9. And so that's 19.4 degrees. And the other thing too, let me mention this real quick. Let me write this down, 19.4 degrees. All right, the other thing I want to mention real quick is, let's say that, you know how I said, okay, you add the given and the second quadrant angle and see if that's less than 180 or more than 180. Well, let's just say you forget that and you go ahead and you just put down there's two triangles. Well, when you go to calculate C2, if it doesn't work, you're going to get a negative angle here. Because if this angle and this angle add up to more than 180, and you do 180 minus that angle and minus that angle, you're going to end up with a negative. So then you know you would be able to cross out the second triangle. That's another way to check it too. All right, so we've got all this. So what I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to erase all this so I can keep this showing on the screen, and we will calculate C1 and C2, which if you've watched the other two videos, you should know that. You should be able to do that by now. I'll go ahead and finish it out. Alright, so let's find C1 first. So once again, both of these are given, so I'm going to use angle A and side A and as opposed to this because this was calculated. So I've got the sine of 29.7 degrees over 27.2 equals the sine of 101.2 degrees over C1. And then I solve for C1, so C1 is 27.2 times the sine of 101.2 degrees over the sine of 29.7 degrees. And so C1 is, alright, so I get 53.9 when I punch that into my calculator. So that's 53.9. Okay. Alright, now let's solve for C2. So once again, I'm going to use angle A and side A. So I get the sine of 29.7 over 27.2, that's a 9, equals the sine of 19.4 degrees over C2. And then I solve for C2. So C2 is 27 point, make sure I did this one over here right. Yeah. Okay, so 27.2 times 27.2 times the sine of 19.4 over the sine of 29.7 degrees. And so I get C2 is, alright, and so for punching this into my calculator, I get C2 is 18.2. And there's my two triangles. So remember, when you're using the law of sines, you have to check for two triangles. If you're given one angle and you've got two unknown angles and you're using the law of sines, you have to check for two triangles. And when you check for two triangles, it may be, it may not be. Okay, there's a possibility of two triangles, and in this case there was two triangles. In the other case, we checked for it. It was not two triangles. You can go back and watch part 2. Like I said, I would watch all of these, watch them in order because they all tie together. Okay, this is part 3. I would watch part 1 and part 2. Alright, so hope this helped. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my other videos. Alright, thanks.